let's go to what most of us would consider, probably not you, because you're an expert. But I want to go to ground zero.
Yep.
July 1947, Roswell.
Mm-hmm. Yep.
If you will. This is for most. You can say with 100% certainty it happened.
Oh yeah, it happened. I actually have known before they passed away some of the guys who were there.
Okay, hold on, because I got a series of questions, and then I could just go for it.
Mm-hmm.
Number one, I want to establish what you just did. It happened. Mm-hmm. Number two, earlier in our conversation, you spoke about, I believe it was a general that said that there was a shadow government that existed.
Oh, that was Senator Inouye. Yeah.
Okay. Many of the children of the eyewitnesses of Roswell, they spoke about, in layman's term, the men in black. These guys who came and they swore everybody the secret, and they took the alien survivors away, and they took all of the people. If you can, go into as much detail about what was found, how real you know that situation to be, because then I want to bring it to the propulsion and the energy sources that you spoke about, but it all starts there.
It actually didn't start there. That was 1947. There were apparently a couple of crash retrieval events in the late 30s and 40s. We know at the Trinity site in 1945, and shortly after we detonated the first atomic bomb, there was a craft that was downed or came down in that area that we retrieved. But 1947 is the most celebrated one. That one, there were actually 3 extraterrestrial vehicles involved. We had we have a document, you'll see it in my book, Unacknowledged, which goes with the documentary Unacknowledged. When you see all these for free on Amazon Prime and whatever. But it describes a new radar system that we had put in. Now, at Roswell. Now, let me tell you a little bit about the sort of military speak here. A radar system, you and I think of it as just something that sends out a beam, and it bounces off the skin of an aircraft, and you trace it. Those systems can also have an active directional energy warfare system attached to it or associated with it, either within the system or very nearby. So then when something is painted or tracked on radar, it's then hit with an electromagnetic weapon, a directional weapon. Those were actually beginning to be experimented with in the 30s and 40s. By 1947, this FBI document from a field agent to J. Edgar Hoover, which we had published, states that system was switched on. And it obviously had more than just a radar component. It had to have an active electromagnetic weapon part of it. And there were 3 of these ET craft that were over that area. And I'll tell you why in a moment. 2 of them collided. One was in a bazillion pieces, not far from that Roswell Army Air Base. The other one continued westward near Socorro, impacted, and it broke. And there were extraterrestrial bodies and I know of one living ET taken from there. The third one, wasn't found, I believe it's till 1951, up in the mountains going way northwest of Roswell, up in the mountains in New Mexico.
I'm sorry to interject. Are you saying there was a third ET that got away?
No, there's a third ET craft that crashed. But there was one, to my knowledge, there was one survivor that we captured. And I think I have an Army intelligence guy who was the last guy I know to see that being in 1951 at Camp Perry in Virginia. And it was in a crate wearing boxer shorts. And it didn't live much longer. So apparently it lived about 4 years in captivity.
Okay. Wow. It's a lot to unpack here. Have you had the opportunity to speak to any of the eyewitnesses of Roswell or the children of the eyewitnesses of Roswell? And what is it that they conclusively can tell you that you can relay to us?
Yeah, we have. And we have actually a couple, one of the children, who's also a medical doctor, is up on our YouTube channel. His father was there and actually had some material. And it was interesting. It had what looked like hieroglyphic type writing on it. It wasn't, but there's some kind of symbols on this very lightweight, unusual metallic part of this craft, ET craft. But in 1995, I had a gathering in California. That was the first gathering of our whistleblowers. And I guess there were about a dozen of them there, and one of them had also been at Roswell. And we have that on a tape. So yeah, I have met with and interviewed both original folks who were there and the children of a couple of the guys who were there. And there's no question about that event. But there are now, we have in our archive, we have what we call the Disclosure Intelligence Archive, 122 of these sort of crashes and retrievals that have been documented.
Okay. I believe I heard you say that you met with someone in the I'm not sure if it was the Army or what branch of service that worked with the retrieval of these ET.
Yes.
What did he or she have to say about it? Did they get a look at the alien itself?
Oh yeah.
If not, did they get a look at the wrecked spaceships? What could they tell you?
Well, if you look at the interview we did with Sergeant Clifford Stone, he was on a retrieval team in the 60s. And this was after Roswell, almost 20 years. He was on multiple of these, where he was involved with not only the vehicles, but retrieval of the beings, the extraterrestrial beings, some of whom were living. And so I've interviewed a number of these sort of men. Very few of them have come forward publicly. The most recent one was a man who was on a retrieval team in, I believe it was 2011, out in the north of so-called Area 51. And there was a very large ET craft that was stunned with an electromagnetic weapon that came down, but it did not crash. It was stunned, and this man had a very close encounter with two of the ETs that came out of the craft. But that craft eventually was able to restarted itself and took off. But it's a very long story. We're in the process of trying to bring him into D.C. to go to the Pentagon, where they're debriefing folks right now that we're identifying. You have to understand, I have debriefed over 1,000 men and women like this. And I have in my archive 755 of them. The others are ones who never wanted to give us their contact information. So I'm sort of have debriefed hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of people like this over the last, now, 30 years. But it's been a long path. But what my job is to take all, because of the what's called top secret special compartmented information, where it's very compartmented, is to get as much of the information from hundreds and hundreds of these sources and put it together in some kind of coherent picture and assessment, like an intelligence assessment. So that's what I started doing in the early 90s, and I still continue to do it. And we provide those to people in Congress and to people in the White House and Pentagon upon request. We're a private organization. So